Today, we're taking a moment to remember an author who, for so many of us, was just a pure source of joy. A writer whose incredible wit and warmth brought us some of the most unforgettable characters in modern fiction. We are, of course, talking about the wonderful Sophie Kinsella.
You know, when the sad news came out, tributes just like this one started pouring in online. And they really capture the heart of her legacy, don't they? She wasn't just writing books, she was literally creating happiness. And that's what we're going to explore today, the incredible joy she gave to the world.
All right, so here's our plan. We'll start with the recent news, and then we'll dive into her two very distinct author identities, which is fascinating. Then, of course, we'll get into the shopaholic phenomenon, break down her one-of-a-kind writing style, and finally, we'll talk about her incredibly courageous final chapter. So, let's begin with the news that really touched readers all over the planet and sparked this huge outpouring of love and remembrance. It was just such a profound loss for everyone. At only 55 years old, Madeline Wickham, the brilliant woman behind the Sophie Kinsella name, passed away after a truly courageous fight with brain cancer. Her family's statement really captured the personal tragedy behind this public loss. They talked about her radiance and love of life, and honestly, those are the exact qualities that just burst off the page in every single one of her novels. Now, to really understand her genius, you have to get your head around the fact that she was, in a way, two different authors. And this was a really smart, creative choice that would pretty much define her whole career. Okay, so this is where the story gets really interesting. See, before she was the Sophie Kinsella we all know and love, she was Madeline Wickham. She had this intense degree from Oxford. She was a financial journalist. I mean, she was a serious author. She published her first book at just 24 and went on to write 7 novels that were a completely different world from what she'd become famous for. And the difference between her two identities is it's striking. The Madeline Wickham books, they were darker, more serious, often juggling these big casts of characters. But the Sophie Kinsella books, they were bright, funny, focused on one unforgettable heroine, and told right from inside her head. It was an absolute masterclass in creating a brand. And she did it on purpose. She created the name using her middle name, Sophie, and her mom's maiden name, Kinsella, to launch a totally new voice. She said it herself. She wanted a voice that was faster and funny with a sense of the ridiculous. And boy, that voice was about to take over the entire world. And that new voice gave birth to a character and a series that would become a cultural landmark for a whole generation, the Shopaholic books. I mean, the scale of her success is just staggering. To this day, Sophie Kinsella's books have sold over 50 million copies around the globe. Just let that sink in. And this was no British or American fad. Nope. Her work just connected with people everywhere. It found a home in over 60 countries, translated into more than 40 languages. Turns out, the story of a funny, eternally optimistic woman who's maybe not so great with money, well, that's pretty universal. What's so brilliant is that over almost 20 years, she let her most famous character, Becky Bloomwood, grow up right alongside her readers. We met her when she was a young journalist drowning in credit card debt. We followed her to New York. We watched her get married, have a baby. This whole evolution kept the series feeling fresh and made sure Becky always felt like a relatable friend. So, what was the secret sauce? What was it that made millions of readers feel like Becky Bloomwood, or any of her heroines, were their actual best friends? Well, it all comes down to a very specific and very brilliant writing style. It all boils down to her total mastery of the first-person narrative. This was way more than just telling a story from one character's point of view. She created what some people call an effect of real presence, where the line between you, the reader, and the character it melts away. You're not just reading the story, you are in her head. And a perfect example of this is one of her signature moves, the little parenthetical aside. These unfiltered thoughts, like this absolute gem from My Not So Perfect Life, they give you this direct, hilarious peek right into the character's brain. It feels like she's whispering a secret just to you. And her humor was always, and I mean always, warm. It wasn't that biting, mocking sarcasm that pushes you away. No, it was a good-natured wit built on flaws we all see in ourselves. It invited you in, it made you feel seen, and it created this real affection for these perfectly imperfect people. And that brings us to her final chapter, a time of enormous personal challenge that she faced with the exact same grace, wit, and courage that defined all of her work.
So at the end of 2022, she received the absolutely devastating diagnosis of glioblastoma, a very aggressive form of brain cancer. But even then, she kept writing. Her final book was published in late 2024, just a little over a year before she passed away in December of 2025.
In what I can only describe as an act of unbelievable bravery, she channeled her own personal experience directly into her art. Her final book, a novella called What Does It Feel Like, is about an author named Eve who gets diagnosed with a brain tumor. She even called it her most autobiographical work to date. And both critics and readers, they immediately felt the power of what she had done. As one review put it, even with this heartbreaking topic, she somehow filled the story with more hope than sorrow and more love than sadness. And that is just a testament to her incredible spirit.
And this quote from the book itself just captures that spirit so perfectly. Facing the unimaginable, her character, and you have to feel Sophie herself, finds real meaning not in some grand gesture, but in the simple, beautiful, small pleasures of just being with the people you love. So in the end, by turning her own pain into a story for the rest of us, she gave her readers one last, incredibly powerful gift, a story not about dying, but about living, a story about resilience and hope and the unbreakable power of love. She was an author who made us genuinely laugh out loud, who made us feel seen in our own messy, chaotic lives, and who, right up to the very end, reminded us all to look for the joy. So I'll leave you with this to think about. What joy did her stories bring to you?